Hi, everyone. Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. As is my habit, I'll walk through the agenda for what's in front of us before I officially call the meeting to order, although it's a very brief agenda. Because this is a special meeting, it's a special meeting for one agenda item only. And so really, our agenda tonight is that we will be opening and then taking up a public hearing on Order 105. We'll hear more about that as the clerk reads it when we open the hearing. Our purpose here tonight is for the council to learn more information, for us to hear from any members of the public who may sign up to speak. There are sign-up sheets over on the table by the window. I see a member of the public going there right now to sign up, and so we will take public comment, and then the council will be able to ask questions and also have conversation, and our goal is to hopefully have enough information that we feel like we're ready to vote this evening. So with that, I will officially call to order this special meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, March 31st, 2025, 7 o'clock p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley? Here. Feldman? Here. Houseman? Rotundo? Here. Spang? Here. St. Hilaire? Here. Sweeney? And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councillor St. Hilaire, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Councillor St. Hilaire. So because this is a special meeting, as I mentioned, it doesn't follow the regular agenda of our regular meetings. That means that we are going just to go directly to our posted public hearing, and that is a hearing posted for order, as I said, 105. Ms. Kent.
Legal notice 105, City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday.
Hold on a second, Ms. Kent. I like that Councillor Houseman came in with his... Councillor Houseman, I like that you came in with basically the current equivalent of like a boombox on your...
Walk-up music.
I know. Welcome, Councillor Houseman.
I'm not going to be able to read it.
Well, it's good because we were a little ahead of our time to start the hearing officially, Ms. Kent. So this is good. We had some beats, some beats to get going, and now, Ms. Kent, order 105, if you would.
City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, March 31st, 2025 at 7:05 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers. Relative to the city, appropriates a sum of $7,500,000 to pay costs of purchasing and replacing water and sewer meters, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8(6), Section 7(1), or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city therefore. The mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project, including but not limited to applying for, accepting, and expending any and all grants that may be available to the city to defray costs of this project. The amount authorized to be borrowed by this order shall be reduced to the extent of any such grants received by the city on account of this project. And this was in the newspaper on March 21st.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. So I think I neglected to do that and officially open the public hearing that Ms. Kent just read the order for. As I mentioned, if there are members of the public here or watching and on your way here listening to BevCam who would like to sign up to speak in the public hearing, there are sign-up sheets. They're over on the table by the window in the chamber, and we will take public comment in the order that members of the public have signed up when we get to that portion of our hearing. We'll begin this evening by members of the mayor's team are here. All right, we'll turn it over to you all to get us started if you would like.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Eric Barber. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Public Services. I'm going to start this by saying I started my employment here in the city of Beverly in 2002. And in 2002, Commissioner Collins gave me one of my very first assignments, and it was to assist with what was named at the time the Remaining Meters Project. Now, at the time, in the year 2000, we had gone through a meter change-out program, and the Remaining Meters Project was the very last meters that we were putting in associated with that meter change-out project. Now, that's relevant because here, 23 years later, I'm coming before you today with another meter change-out program. But that's a good thing, because meters in the industry typically last around 20 years. So we did a great job as a community keeping this system alive. But you have to imagine that, with this particular type of system, it's coming to its life's end, and we're here today to change over the system, and we're looking for the money to be able to do that. So, the meters that we have installed, and I'm going to show you one here real quick. They have a dial, the water goes through, the dial spins. Now, in most cases, the dial's still spinning. But the real problem that we're having right now is its ability to communicate is going away. There's a battery in this device. It communicates with a van. Keep in mind the fact that it's a year 2000 Astro van. So I don't know if any of you are driving a year 2000 vehicle, but that's what we're trying to keep alive right now and doing a great job. But the ability for this meter to communicate is slowly but surely going away because of the batteries and the fact that the batteries are dying. And beyond that, I don't know if you guys know what this is. I'm sure many of you do, but there's probably some people on BevCam that are gonna say, well, I don't have any idea what that is. Well, this is a floppy disk, and we actually operate our system right now and our ability to collect the readings on floppy disk. And a shout out to our IT department that's done an amazing job to be able to keep this alive, leveraging floppy disks, which first off started their antiquation and phase out in the early 2000s, and Sony stopped making them in the year 2011. So with that, the technology has moved beyond us at this point. So our ability to actually obtain readings is slowly but surely going away. And so, with all of that, we're coming before you today to change out all of the city's meters. So the plan is to change out all of them through all the businesses and all the residences. Now, the good news is the change out process itself is fairly simple. And in fact, here's one of the new meters. And if you put them side by side, they're the same length, which makes the installation fairly simple. We've done a lot of work in the past to make sure that our system was set up to change these out, so that's going to work out very well. The next thing is we've already selected a meter vendor. We know where we want to go with this meter program. We know who we want to use. We were able to leverage a purchasing consortium that was approved through our purchasing department for this purchase. And then furthermore, for the installation services, we went out to an invitation for bid, and we have a qualified low bidder who we anticipate awarding the contract to. This project is going to take place as soon as we get a green light, but the total duration between 18 and 24 months, and then we'll probably have some straggling details that we're trying to deal with. This will essentially completely modernize our system, and one of the best things and one of the greatest benefits, and this is a home run, not just for the city, internally in our departments, but it's a home run for our residents and our business owners. These meters have the ability to detect leaks inside the home. And so there's monitoring that can be set up, and notifications and flags and email notifications, so that if somebody's toilet's running 24/7, if somebody leaves a faucet on somewhere, if somebody accidentally leaves a hose on in the backyard, there are flags that can be set up that will actually notify the homeowner, and they can make corrections. So the day of, astronomical bills and accidental astronomical bills will start to go away, and we're advocating to everybody to take advantage of this. So when we go into the installation process, we have portals that can be signed up for, simple email address, our ability to build out that user base inside the portal so that they can take advantage of all the excellent tools that come with this. And I'm just going to give you a real quick example. I ran a quick little pilot project here and put in 5 meters in our own municipal buildings to watch them. And within the first 2 weeks, I found a leak in GAR Hall because there was a bad bladder on one of our systems, and it opened a relief valve, and it was dumping out about 60 gallons per day. Found that flag, told our facility supervisor, he went and fixed it immediately, and instead of having water damage, instead of having water pouring all over the floor, and instead of paying for all that water that otherwise would have been wasted, we were able to fix the system, and within 2 days it was corrected and back up and running. So proof in the pudding in our own buildings, it works. So with that, that's kind of the idea of the actual meter changeout itself, but I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk about some of the money.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barber. Mr. Ailes, and Mr. Ailes, as you're coming up, I should say that the mayor, Mike Cahill, is here with us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, as well as Public Services Commissioner Mike Collins. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Of course, Mr. Barber, we just heard from. Our budget analyst, Mr. Jerry Perry, is here. Thank you, Mr. Perry. And I do note that Ward 6 School Committee member Lorinda Visnick is here in her familiar seat in the back row as well. Thanks for being here, Ms. Visnick. Mr. Ailes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to hand something out real quick to you. Just take one in. So that was a great description of the project, of what we're trying to accomplish. And I know you're all familiar with the issues and the project because we've been including it and talking about it now for a number of years. Most recently, it's been contained within the capital improvement plan and is something that we've known we need to undertake as a city in the very, very near future, and that future is now. And so we've gone through the process of publicly procuring, as Mr. Barber said, so we have a very good sense of what this swap-out program is going to cost the city. Now, when we talk about cost in the order that's before you, it's for a loan authorization. So the mechanics of that is, if approved, the council would authorize me, as the treasurer, to go and actually issue municipal bonds and pay those bonds back over a period of time. And in order to pay those back, the costs associated with that would be borne by the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. So this is entirely separate from the city's general fund and the tax base within the city. This gets charged back by the mechanism of setting the rate each year. And so what I just handed out to you is an example of what we would anticipate in terms of costs on an annual basis for this $7.5 million price tag. So because it's both water and sewer, it's measuring both, and we're billing for both, the cost of it would be split between the two separate entities. There's a water enterprise fund, and then there's a separate sewer enterprise fund. So each enterprise fund would assume half of the burden, and you can see in this scenario that we're estimating a 15-year payback term. Now, Mr. Barber said the expected useful life of the program is about 20 years. We would anticipate probably around the 15-year mark for some devices to start to fail, and we would want to then talk about some sort of kind of phased-in replacement approach or something like that. So to really pull it out beyond a 15-year borrowing, really, from my perspective, doesn't make the most sense because we're going to begin incurring costs probably from 15 to 20 and beyond as this program gets phased out. Right now, I'm holding an estimate of 4.75% as an interest rate. That's slightly higher than the 10-year Treasury right now. However, that is a reflection of some recent borrowings that took place for similar municipalities by our financial advisors in the month of January. And so we're using real data there to get a sense of what a reasonable coupon rate on the bonds would be, or interest rate that the city would need to pay would be. It's important to note, however, though, I'm quoting a gross interest rate of 4.75%. It's very rare that is the net interest rate for the city. What typically happens is when you go to bid the bonds, they will quote a gross interest rate, which is what you need to pay back, but they'll also sometimes discount and provide monies up front, which would go into the enterprise funds and help support the debt service later. So when they evaluate the bids on a municipal borrowing, they do it on a net interest cost basis, because that's the true cost to the enterprise funds in this case. So as you can see, I've drawn out 15 years worth of costs. Keep in mind, this is going to be a phased project. We're not going to be able to swap out all the meters at one time. This project could take anywhere from I don't want to misquote, 18 to 24, yeah, up to 2 years probably to get the majority of this work done. And so we wouldn't incur all the costs up front. We would incur the costs related to ordering the products, but the installation costs get phased in as we actually swap out the meters. So I wouldn't go out tomorrow and borrow the money right away. I would phase in the borrowings over time, and that's why you see for FY26 estimates and FY27 estimates that we're actually stepping up the costs so that we provide a little bit of the relief in FY26, but we're able to service some of the principal and some short-term interests, and then we would permanently borrow in FY27 and then begin paying back that permanent borrowing at that point. So this gives you a sense of what the annualized cost would be, and what we also did is took that annualized cost and divided it among a typical volume of billable units. So we get a cost per billable unit, which is how we set the rates in Beverly. For water, we typically estimate about 1.3 million billable units in a given year. And for the sewer side, it's slightly less than that. It's about 1.2, I believe, off the top of my head. And so I take the total cost, divide into those billable units, and you can see that I've included what the monetary impact will be on the rate for just this borrowing. Okay? So let me stop there because I'm sure you all have some questions, and I'm happy to answer them as long as my colleagues are here too. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. Counselor St. Hilaire.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just a quick question, Mr. Ailes. What is the average water bill and the average sewer bill in the city? Do we know annually?
What do you think? 120 billion units a year. Right. Times 10, yeah. Yeah, so probably, what's that?
$1,200?
$1,200 a year.
For both or for each?
That's combined.
Combined.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Mr. Barber had some comments about potentially saving money and by identifying solutions to leaks and things like that. Is there any estimate on what an average person might expect to save from that? Is that significant?
So I can speak from my own experience too. There have been some very extreme cases where, an individual leaves a toilet running and goes to Florida for months at a time and comes back and gets the quarterly bill, and it's just astronomical. There have been instances of irrigation systems that are leaking, and the leak's underground, so you can't, you don't know it's leaking until you get your bill. This would prevent all of that. So in those cases where there is a leak in the system, it would save the ratepayer money. This isn't about saving the city money. This is about saving the ratepayer money in that example. Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rotundo, please.
Mr. Ailes, I recall back as Mr. Barber referred, the late 90s, early 2000s, when the whole system was switched out. And as we all know, there were some very high bills because it was self-reporting at the time. We know right now there are some estimates, and I know you're doing a good job at notifying those customers with estimates on their bills. But if there's an instance where there will be some maybe large bills when the correction comes in, is there any opportunity for ratepayers to have some sort of a payment plan or something? Because I know that's some concerns right now, especially knowing that they're being estimated. And we've seen some other communities have this issue as well.
Yeah, it's a great point, Counselor. We have known that there's this potential for variances because when the meter stops working and stops transmitting, we go into what's called an estimated phase where we begin estimating the bills based on previous levels of usage. And so there needs to be a true-up when we swap out these meters. And so you're going to have some ratepayers that have paid more than they should have and may, in that case, get a credit on their bill and bleed out that credit over the next, few billing cycles. Converse to that, which I think is your concern, rightfully so, is you could have some ratepayers that have not been paying as much as they've been using. And it could span years, in fact. We've had some people that have been on estimated bills for some years. And so we've been reaching out, as you said, for over a year, just about a year now, trying to get in touch with all the individuals and businesses that are on these estimated bills and telling them, hey, go read your meter and get us the accurate readings so we can true up and kind of phase in that approach before we swap out the meter. And so we got good responses from that. And what we've noticed is that generally, most of them are pretty close. You know, there's some variances, but it's a manageable amount. But you're going to have some extreme cases on both sides of that. You're going to have some extreme credits, and you're going to have some extreme bills. And in those instances, we are committed to working with the ratepayer because we understand that those variances have accrued over a period of time. So it's not fair, and it's somewhat unrealistic to assume that we're going to collect, whether it's a $10,000 bill for a business or something, in one fell swoop, which could pose a hardship for the ratepayer. So we're able to work with them in how we're billing out the accrued balance. Unfortunately, because it's water that has actually been used, we're not able to abate or eliminate the bill, but we can work with the ratepayer to make it more manageable for their financial situation.
Just because if anyone is watching or if it gets reported out, a person's bill is clearly stated estimate, they know, so they're not going to be wondering if they hear it in the newspaper, say, ooh, is my bill been estimated, and am I going to be hit with this? They've been notified over the last however many months, they've seen it and all that, so it's not, I mean, there might be some anomalies, a few may not have realized it still, but you've done everything you can and
Yeah.
letting them recognize it.
It actually goes back, as soon as it becomes an estimated bill, it looks different. It says, this is an estimate, please contact, City Hall. But then in addition to that, over the last year, we've been adding additional paperwork in the bills to really kind of flag it for people and say, hey, you got to call us. And like I said, we've gotten a fairly good response. What would you say, about maybe a third?
Seems like
About a third of the people have reached out to us proactively, and we appreciate that. And there's still some time to do that going forward. So we hope that those that notice this insert in their water bill give us a call and help us out.
All right, thank you, appreciate it, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Houseman, then Counselor Feldman, and Counselor Spang.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, really, my chief question really was the one that Counselor Rotundo just asked, and you answered ably. I guess I would ask how many of the population of water bills that get sent out presently are estimated?
7%? Just 7? Okay, 7%.
So not a really large number. Yeah, so
We've got 12,600 meters we're swapping out, so
7% of those?
7% of that number, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so particularly important to homeowners who, through no fault of their own, you don't want them to get blindsided and with an unmanageably large bill and have no recourse. Is there any penalty, like interest or something, that's charged on those overages, or is it just straight flat
in a
usage?
typical year or a typical billing cycle, unpaid water bills and sewer bills do begin accruing interest. However, in this case, we think we have some flexibility where we're able to work with how the billing is going out to avoid those penalties.
Okay, thank you. Two other questions. One is, just curious about your example of the person who's, toilet's running or whatever, they go away for 2 months or something, and you said this new meter would eliminate something like that happening. Does that mean that there is a way remotely to, if something is flagged, to, to address the leak remotely for someone who's gone, or was that just sort of a loose potential example?
So the way this works is there's an application, it's pretty much like a login on an app that has different flags and different notifications that can be sent. So as a homeowner or property owner, you have the ability to establish who that flag goes to. It could go to the owner, it could go to anybody else in your family. So assuming that you receive notification that you have continuous use on that meter, depending on how you set it up, you could have a relative that's able to respond for you. You could have, a neighbor, somebody that you've put in charge to monitor your property while you're not there. So if you know that you have this system in place and you take some of the precautions and safeguards ahead of time, it really does give you the opportunity to receive the information when you need to and create the, repair or corrective actions that you need to shut down your water if need be, or any other action there.
That's a helpful helpful clarification. It wasn't clear from the example whether there was some remote ability.
Right.
In a sense, there is if you use the system and have someone else.
Correct. And to
watching.
be clear, just so that everybody understands, there's no ability to turn on or off the meter leveraging this system. It's simply a warning system and gives you flags and notifications as you set it up.
Got it. And if you would stay there, one last question. You talked about the floppy disk, which is actually like a second-generation floppy disk, because it's not truly floppy. The first ones are 6 inches.
Touche.
Truly floppy. But having said that, so I'm interested a little bit in the technology of this. Is this cloud-based? You talked about the batteries, they run
Correct.
down. It's not like, apparently you can't just go in and put in a new battery. So what is the nature of the specific technology of this newer device?
Yep, so there are really two components. There's the meter itself, and then there's a radio. And the radio transmits a signal ultimately to radio towers that are going to receive that. And at that point, the signal is deciphered and encoded into the actual reading. The reading at that point is translated into the water use. The water use is then multiplied by the billing rate, and that's what generates the bill.
So the radio receiver is also battery-based?
Yes, the meter and the radio, but they're 20-year batteries. That's the normal, typical in the
Okay, so
in the industry.
similar, a newer version of the same technology, it's still battery-based.
Correct.
At some point, they'll run out.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, my most important question was the one anticipated already by Councilor Rotundo, so thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Feldman.
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited about this project because I have had some constituents with some water meter self-reporting issues, so I'm very excited to see this get off the ground. My question was about the portal and the software for Ward 5 in particular has quite the digital equity gap in terms of user. I have a lot of constituents that don't have computers or email or really use a smartphone. Are there any ways of notifying somebody or setting up any type of thing that's paper-based, and will the billing is there still a way to reach those constituents that are not tech savvy at all, even if they have all these abilities to do things? But
Sure. Yeah, just to clarify, for those who don't have either the want or need for that particular function or the ability to use it, the world won't change for them. We still maintain our paper billing. We're still anticipating, at least at this point, to go with the quarterly billing, so we don't anticipate any changes there. It will pretty much act business as usual for the vast majority of customers. And in fact, the only way things will change is if they choose to select a level of paperless billing, but that's not even an option right now under our current billing system. So right now, everything is pretty much status quo as everything has always been for our customers, so.
And one more question. Is there already a plan in place for how these water meters are chosen to roll out in terms of installation? Is there going to be priority to those that are already self-reporting that need it, or?
That's a great question. So in this, a lot of times with, more construction-related projects, we can't always dictate the exact order or means and methods that things happen. However, we have an excellent meter vendor who's been in this industry for, long time at this point. I can't quote you the exact number of years without doing further research. But anyway, received in terms of their qualifications. I expect that they're going to work with us. We definitely know which accounts have issues and which ones that we want to go after first. A lot of times it's going to be access-based. So, we will have a schedule. We're going to be actively working to reach out to homeowners and business owners to establish a schedule. That will be something that's going to come directly from the vendor. Once we establish the schedule, we're going to do our best to try to stick to it, but obviously at certain points in times things will happen. I probably won't know much about schedule until we have a kickoff meeting and we see the flexibility for the contractor and what direction they want to move. What I can tell you is, with the commercial program, we know that we want to try to get to, some of the commercial properties early on. Sometimes they're easier to access. Sometimes it's easier to get to a facility manager and somebody that can help you into these areas. Sometimes, the homes are a little more difficult depending on people's work schedules and, their availability. So, we're really here to work with everybody to make sure that, it's as convenient as possible. But of course, that's with the caveat in saying, but we have to get the meters installed and they have to be done within a reasonable time period. So just take away from that, contractor will be working to establish a schedule and a schedule application. Once people start signing up and, committing to the schedule, I'll have a better feeling for where timing is going to be and what areas we're going to work in and kind of how that's going to roll out. So we'll know more once we have our kickoff meeting with our contractor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Spang.
Thank you. Most of my questions were answered already. But with the portal, will people be able to access that on their own? I know you said that people can set up alerts if usage goes over some levels, but is it also something that people from home will be able to look at and see their usage?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So there's two sides of the system. There's the city managed side and then there's the customer managed side. And in that particular case and in that portal, it's a customer managed side. So they have the ability with their own login credentials. It has nothing to do with, we don't even have access to that side of it. But they'll use their own login, their own credentials, set their own notifications, set their own, thresholds for where they want alerts. We can give them guidance. We can help them get set up. It would be my anticipation that, as we leave a meter install, we work with the property owner to get that portal set up and established, and hopefully even as much as send, test emails right on the spot to make sure that everything's working properly. So in a perfect world, any customers that are capable and willing and want to leverage that side of the technology, we set it up at the time of the install and make sure that it's communicating properly.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. And similarly, most of my questions have been answered, and sounds like the project will be a strong benefit to customers and to the city. So the only remaining question I think on my side is related to the overall cost and what we should start preparing for in water and sewer rates over the next few years in general. So I know there are other major projects needed, underway, looking at, replacing water mains and sewer pipes, and projects for the sewer district as a whole. So if you could just kind of put this in that context, and it sounds like an increase that everyone can expect around 10%. I'm looking at our budget analyst over the next fiscal year, and then continuing to increase from there as other projects layer in. So they sound like necessary projects, but I'm thinking of both preparing ourselves for what that looks like in bills and for just, hearing some reassurance about how we're containing costs on projects while getting the services we need.
Mr. Perry, you're at the podium.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. Maybe it's a good time for me to jump up here. I can answer those questions. I'll make a few more comments and I'll sit back down again. If I may, and I will answer those questions, I promise. So let me go through my list here. I'm going to try to cover some of the things that haven't necessarily been covered yet. The request of the mayor's administration includes labor, materials, and a 10% contingency. So hopefully we get a little lucky there. Maybe we don't have to spend all of that. We'll see how it shakes out, but that's there. I agree with the finance director of the 15 years, the 4.75% rate. I gave you a simulation of my own. Mr. Ailes gave you another one, but you get a sense of what it will cost over the next several years here. To answer your question, Councilor Bowen, specifically based on my discussions, I want to thank both Mr. Ailes and Mr. Barber. They gave me a lot of time there last week. They are contemplating a 3.37% combined water sewer rate increase for this project in FY26, which would add 35 cents per cubic feet in next fiscal year. And then the following year, in FY27, they're contemplating for this project only a 2.87% increase, which would increase by 31 cents per cubic feet for the water meter project. But then, consistent, Council Bowen, with what you indicated, with a combination of other projects, looking at the FY26 budget, I remind you about a year and a half ago, May, I think it was, of 2024, we did the Hale Street project, which was 1.1 million of retained earnings, and when we shifted that money over, we talked at that time how this was going to have an impact on rates over the next several years. I wrote to you, I spoke at this podium. So in my view, we're not there yet, but you articulated about 10% increase in FY26. I think right now that's a very good number to look at. I kind of agree with that, given for this project, coupled with the other things going on. And also, we're not going to have as much retained earnings in the water and sewer accounts to offset the rates in the next couple of years, because we draw that down for that Hill Street project. So I'm looking at around 10% for the next year anyways. As they indicated, I was intrigued by that 12,600 meters. That was quite a bit there. One of the things Mr. Barber and we talked about last week, I mean, they're going to be project management, keeping an eye on everything, but their staff isn't really doing the work. It's an outside vendor. They'll be kind of doing that kind of work too. So that was important to know that. A couple of you raised the issue of the big bills that could be coming from no matter how hard the administration, they're doing, look at, there is no criticism from me whatsoever. They're doing all the right things humanly possible on these estimated bills. They're doing everything they can. But you as counselors, and certainly the mayor himself, know we're going to have some of this. It's going to happen no matter how hard they work at it. And from my experience in other communities, the civil engineers come out talking about calibrations, and it's kind of fascinating, and it will be in the media. But the bottom line to it is some of that's going to happen. And in conversations I had with Mr. Ailes, as well as our own city solicitor, they're going to make every effort to try to do the best they can to soften the hit for some of these people who may get a large bill. And I think it's the right approach, and I commend them for that. Beyond that, the reason we're here tonight, too, is the tariff issue. As you know, I think the mayor did the right thing trying to accelerate this thing here, because we want to get out in front of this in case these costs could be going up, depending on what happens over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're going to do it, tonight's the night to do it. Beyond that, Madam President, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. As I wrote to you last week, I think this is something we have to do. We are probably losing revenue from from these old meters that aren't reading properly. And to the council, it is my recommendation as your budget analyst to support the mayor's proposal for this loan authorization. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Councilor St. Hilaire, I see your hand. Councilor Bowen, I just wanted to, that was originally your question. Was there anything follow up? And then we'll go to Councilor St. Hilaire if you had something.
Thank you. And that largely answers it, but I wonder if Mr. Ailes or our public services team have more to add on just how we're making sure that we're getting strong value for these investments and that bigger picture.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a good point you mentioned when you asked the question initially around kind of cost containment and how we're managing. We've been very conscious that this would be an increase in costs. And as a result, we've been very kind of cost conscious with how we build the budget every year. And so what, just as a point of reference, I want to provide everyone is 10% rate increase estimated that Mr. Perry's estimating. I mean, that's real to people, and it's real to their pocketbooks. But when you look around at our comparable neighboring communities and what their billable rate is, I just want to give you that perspective, because we're at 1040 right now for our billable combined rate. That's per 100 cubic feet of water. Danvers is at $16.14 for that same amount of water. And they have a graduated rate system. So that's the low point. It goes up from there. Peabody, similarly, has a graduated rate system, and it goes up to 13.45 per billable unit. It starts lower than ours at 970, but it very quickly goes up to 13.45. Salem's at 12.46. Marblehead is at 19.10, and it graduates from there. That's the low part. That's the starting point. Swampscott also graduated. and it starts at $15.32 per unit and goes to $17.65 per unit. Saugus is also graduated and starts at $10.85 a unit. And then I held out Gloucester as the last one because they are at, they bill in 1,000-gallon increments, but I did the conversion, and it is $21.38 per billable unit in Gloucester. So we've intentionally been cost-conscious over the past few years to build in capacity within our budget so that even with these added costs, we're still in very, very close proximity to our comparable communities in terms of cost of drinking water and sanitation sewer. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor St. Hilaire.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Mr. Perry, he made a comment about the,
Sorry, Councillor St. Hilaire, Commissioner Collins popped up there.
go
I just
ahead.
wanted to
Yeah,
add
sorry.
one little bit in terms of project management, that, you know, we're here tonight because we were made aware of the new taxes, I meant tariffs coming down from the federal government that we are trying to avoid. And also, the number that's being put before you, because internally, we've always approached this as a data project, because it's 12,600 points of data, plus all the subsets of data underneath that. It's really a complex project, and we've spent a tremendous amount of time cleaning up that data. Eric's led point on that. And the bids that we received for the installation contract at we'll call it 1.7 million for the installation of the meters, was about $750,000 lower than the next bid, and almost $1 million lower than what our engineer's estimate was. And when we went to the contractors, there's not a ton of water meter installer contractors, as you can imagine. It's pretty specialty business. We went back to them, are you sure, is that number right? And they're like, no, we were so confident, we could tell the quality of work you had done running up to this. We're so confident in your data that we were able to really sharpen our pencils and give you the best price possible. So really, I mean, there's at least $250,000 to $750,000 in savings right off the top because of the way this project is managed. And really, the credit goes to Eric for putting in the time with the rest of our team to getting that done. So it's already, the project management is part of it, I think has been knocked out of the park already, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the whole phase of this. It really now turns into a customer service project because we now need to go interact with 12,600 different customers, and that's a whole nother part of the equation.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. Councillor St. Hilaire.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Perry's comment about the federal tariffs, and could you elaborate on that and potentially how did that impact the timing of this project, I guess?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just don't know what's going to come out of Washington, D.C. One day there's tariffs, and the next day there isn't. It's kind of all over the place. And as I understand it, my limited knowledge is that if there are tariffs and there are goods that are coming over here, the cost of goods could go up. And simply put, if we can get ahead of those tariffs, maybe it won't impact it. I really don't know, but there is concern about that to the degree that I think it's wise to try to get ahead of them. It may not materialize, it could materialize, but we know we have to do this. And I think as we're having this the reason we're having a special meeting tonight is to accelerate the process. And maybe, it sounds like Eric knows something about that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Perry. Mr. Barber.
I think to add to this, so as we were ramping up and getting to this point, the reason why we're coming to you so quickly, it's our understanding that certain tariffs kick in as of April 2nd. And so working with we have a specialist in the industry that's been helping us with all of the, specifications and really sourcing the meters and working to obtain our vendor. They flagged and brought to our attention that they had the instinct and knowledge that the tariffs may impact this project. More specifically, these are USA-made, made in the United States meters. But keep in mind the fact that there are components that come from overseas. And that's the thing, batteries, rubber, some of the components that actually go into the package come from overseas. And so ultimately, even though they're USA-made meters, and there's only a certain amount of them on the shelf right now, and there's only so many that we can get our hands on. So once that inventory goes away, the new inventory that's being made has those components that are subject to the tariffs, and therefore, the longer we wait to greenlight this, the more and more of the meters that were on the shelf get sent to customers across the entire country, get consumed, and then the meters that we would purchase would be subject to the components and the increased cost of those components as the new meters are made. So the purpose tonight is to get in front of that, to hopefully ultimately authorize this so that we can sign our contracts, green light the order, and obtain the meters that are currently on the shelf that don't have components that were subjected to those tariffs. And it's our understanding that our exposure right now is somewhere in the range of between $300,000 and $350,000. So that's why, that's the understanding that we've come to and why we're coming to you as quickly as we did.
Thank you, very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen, then Counselor Crowley. Oh, Counselor Crowley's was already answered. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bowen.
Thank you. I think for me, it doesn't impact this project per se and approval on this timeline, but given, large investments in water meters and in the system overall, I expect we will get questions from across the city about the way in which we apportion these capital costs across customers. So we've had discussions, including sort of refreshing the discussion recently about second water meters for, homeowners or business owners who have less sewer usage and want to be able to track what's actually going into the sewer or what's not. Currently, our billing system uses a set of formulas to calculate how we're apportioning that water and sewer based on a single meter. So with the plan to replace single meters, just want to kind of refresh that reasoning and see whether the new meters will provide users with any further information about how they're using water, opportunities to conserve and manage their bills. And then also whether at some point we would reach a point where we'd consider graduated bills as other communities have in place. Is there a point at which the base rate gets high enough that we might start to think about heavier users paying a higher rate than kind of base level users? It doesn't sound like we're at that point now, but I think as we're switching out meters, those questions will come up. So being on the same page about how we're approaching it will be helpful.
I think just a real quick answer to the data. I'm actually really excited for the information that we're going to receive. It is very granular in terms of what we're going to be able to understand. So we'll be able to monitor trends, but more importantly, the homeowner and the business owner is going to be able to monitor trends. I mean, I know that I watch my wife brush her teeth every night and she leaves the water running while she's brushing her teeth. I want her to turn the water off in between. She leaves the water running while she's washing the dishes. I want her to turn the water off while she's washing the dishes. You could clearly show within your household what that additional use adds up to. I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts that I use 1/10 of the water brushing my teeth than my wife does. I'm probably going to get in trouble for that statement, but I'm willing to own that, and I stand by my statement.
I was going to say it's bold. It's bold that you're calling her out right here on BevCam for this.
I'm in trouble. It's a fact. But that's the type of thing that people are going to be able to do. And I think if you take that across the board and if everybody was willing to take a hard look at their water use, you are really talking about conservation. You're talking about conservation on a home-by-home basis. You're talking about conservation across the entire community. So I think there is something to be said for that. And I know that we're going to be able to learn these things in the data, and each and every business and homeowner is going to be able to learn that from the data, if they so choose. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Spang.
Thank you. I just had one more question because Mr. Perry brought up the 10% contingency. I just wanted to confirm for people watching from home that for municipal projects, any amount of that contingency that is not spent gets returned to the city or never charged to the city. It's not something that the city is on the hook for.
Mr. Ailes?
as I
That is correct, right? We wouldn't borrow, if we spent only 7 million of this 7.5, we would only borrow for 7 million, and we would rescind the rest of the loan order.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Houseman.
Yeah, this is probably for Mr. Barber. Not to get too far in the weeds, but with all the discussion about the residential and the, well, basically building use of the water meters, the water gets to all those buildings flowing through city, municipal piping system. Does the city have, weigh stations basically to monitor within the distribution system the flow of the water to determine whether or not maybe there's an underground water leak coming out of the city's system that they wouldn't otherwise know about?
So it's pretty basic. There's a master meter that comes ultimately from the water board and through our City of Beverly pump station. So on, at our main pump station, there's a meter. That meters the water going out into the distribution system. Then we have all of our meters in all of the buildings, all of our customers. Water purchased minus water sold is what we consider to be unaccounted for. So in that particular case, if we can't account for water, we know it's going somewhere. Oftentimes it's leaks. We go as far as we can to capture data on every single activity that we have throughout the community. For example, hydrant flushing. We put flow gauges and we monitor the length of time that we run the hydrant so that we know how much water we used in those operations. Fighting fires, we actually keep data on that. The fire department keeps data on that for us so that we can account for that water. That's something that we diligently track in order to determine what our unaccounted for water and how much we may potentially be leaking. And then furthermore, there are devices that can be used out within the distribution system to allow us to listen for leaks and to try to identify those leaks and to try to go and repair those leaks. And we do that on a regular basis. We are actually currently talking about additional devices that we may be able to deploy now that technology's, advancing. There are new devices that can be put in strategic locations to also help us pinpoint leaks. And we're talking about what we may be able to do as a pilot project there too. And there's grant money and opportunities that are being presented to us literally right now that we're investigating to be able to do that. So I guess that's a couple of different answers within your question, but that kind of wraps it all up if that makes sense.
If I may. So basically you take the aggregate data, process it to try to figure out by process of elimination whether or not you've got a leak in your system.
Correct.
There's not maybe there is no technology for it, or maybe there is, but it's not being used because it's too expensive. There's no distribution system pipeline monitoring technology that tells you, like the homeowner says, gets a flag that says, hey, you've got an excess running water. Okay, that's a point distribution of a leak. There's nothing like sort of the equivalent of that for the city's underground and municipal pipeline that tells you in real time, hey, in this section of the water main, it looks like there's an internal leak. So that's not available.
So, if I might, it's a great question. What you're really talking about is district metering. So we've looked at district metering initiatives, and one of the things I don't like about it is you start to take our water system, which allows water to flow any way it's needed during a fire or otherwise, based on the amount of demand in any particular section. Once you start segregating the system into districts, you have to start valving off certain ways to force the water through a water meter so that you're measuring just the water that's going to that particular area. Like, for instance, Ryle side, we'd have to close off all the feeds and just measure one of them. Otherwise, we'd have to have several meters and check valves because you don't want the water to go in one and out another to go to another neighborhood. So it starts to get into a very complicated plumbing arrangement, if you will. And so we've not, as big as Beverly is, it's just not that big. So we look at our one master meter. And then the really difficult part for us that's driven both of us crazy since the day we started here is when we go to do that check and compare our master meter which is a very accurate, it's called Venturi meter. It's calibrated every year. So we know that that meter's actually know exactly how much water we're buying, and then we, how much water do we sell? Well, if we say, how much water do we sell between January 1st and December 31st? This is going to be a painful conversation. I apologize in advance. Whatever bill goes out on January 1st is for water that was used in the last 3 months of the year, right? So it's not actually the water that's being used in that month. And then whatever bill is received by December 31st is 3 months before that, and it's just, you never get a proper snapshot of how much water. So I can tell you exactly how much water was used, was purchased every single day by the city. How much water did we sell? I can't really tell you because that's on January 1st for one particular billing district. Is those 3 months. For the next billing district, it's the 2 months prior to that. For the next billing district, it's only 1 month's worth of water. So it's always rotating because we bill quarterly, but that means we bill a third of the city every month. So it just becomes this painful problem, so you can never actually tell how much water we sold between January 1st and December 31st. It's impossible. However, as soon as we put these meters in, we're going to know that for the first time ever. So what we do is an imperfect calculation, but we do it consistently imperfect every single year. So we can compare one year to the next. It's a terrible calculation. I think the only mistake Mrs. Barber made was marrying an engineer because we just can't turn it off, and that bothers us all the time. So that's one of the things that just drives us nuts, and we are going to really, really enjoy the ability to say, this is how much we sold between January 1st and December 31st. And that's the first time we're going to be able to do that once this is all done.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Collins. We do have one member of the public signed up to speak in this public hearing, and so that's true. It is you, Ms. Visnick. So I would invite you to come to the podium, begin with your name and address for the record, despite my having given your name away, and then address the council.
I don't get a timer tonight?
Councilor Crowley, would you like to time Ms. Visnick?
All right, fine. Lorinda Visnick, 39 Middlebury Lane. I want to talk tonight about a second meter because I've been here to talk about a second meter before. And it seems like if we're talking about replacing the water meters, then we should be at least talking about whether to install a second meter. On principle alone, I think the residents should not be paying sewer rates on water that doesn't enter the sewer system. And on a city level versus a personal level, I can imagine that our city may well benefit from accounting for the two different types of water uses separately. Doing so is likely a best practice in public administration. That's kind of not my space just yet. I'm working my way over there. Another benefit of separate meters could be a focus on water conservation and the ability to know if we are conserving relative to, for instance, outdoor water use is non-existent without a separate meter. So if we as a city want to continue to be green and promote conservation, and I've heard that some of you like the green, then I think we really need to be having a bigger conversation about the second meters. And last but not least, I want to address the monetary aspect, lest these two young men over here pull out their voodoo dolls and start using them on me. I do recognize the need for the continuity of the income relative to our water fees overall. And I wish to mention that most people, most residents who want a second meter hope that they would actually see a savings because you wouldn't be paying sewer on whatever water you're using out in your yard. And thus that creates a conflict in between the residents' goal of a second meter and what the potential public administration goal or goals may be. regardless, regardless, there is an opportunity, there's a little PSA here in the middle of my little ask of you guys. There is a way to ask for relief. If you, for instance, fill your pool, you can ask for a relief on the sewer rate for that water. And so that's my little PSA. I would be remiss if I didn't do that in the middle of my little thing here. Lots of little pages today. I couldn't find any big paper. So I really want to say, I know you guys are considering the super stretch, that's not its name, but the super stretch energy code. And I would look at a second water meter similarly. And so as we look forward, it would be awesome if we were forward looking. I thank all of you for your service to our city. Please think about a second water meter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. And I think Councilor Hausman would want me to note that specialized code was the word that you were reaching for. Super stretch code. Super stretch. Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in this public hearing? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close this public hearing, and I will refer it back to the Committee of the Whole so that we can have further discussion this evening. In order to have further discussion, we've had a chance for councilors to ask questions. Is there a motion to approve Order 105? Thank you. Are there any further discussion among councilors? All right. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries 8-0. Thank you very much. Councilor Spang.
Should we make a motion to reconsider in the hopes, I will make a motion to reconsider in the hopes that it will fail.
Oh, could you turn your microphone on and just
Sorry.
repeat what?
Sorry about that.
Councilor Spang, will you just repeat what you just said, just so
Yes.
BevCam can follow it?
I am making a motion to reconsider with the hopes that it will fail.
Thank you, Councilor Spang. Second the motion to reconsider. So thank you. Councilor Spang is mentioning a motion to reconsider, hoping it will fail. That's something that people don't maybe often hear councilors say when they make a motion. For those who are following, the reason that a council might want to consider this is, as we just heard, it could potentially be expeditious and cost-saving for the administration to be able to begin with purchasing these meters. And a motion to reconsider that fails would mean that they would be able to do that beginning tomorrow rather than waiting the 72 hours our council rules prescribe for a councilor to be able to have time to reconsider their vote. So in this case, if you would like to reconsider the vote you just made, you would be voting yes on the motion to reconsider that's before us. If you would like to, if you're confident in the vote that you just made and you'd like to forgo the motion, the ability to reconsider for 72 hours, we'd be voting no on Councilor Spang's motion. And that might be helpful to know. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of reconsidering? All those opposed? Motion fails, 0-8. Thank you. That is the only item on our agenda this evening. So I will say thank you to all the members of our city staff who are here with us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for joining us as well. Mr. Ailes, Mr. Barber, Commissioner Collins. Thank you to members of the public who are with us for the duration. Thank you, Kim in the BevCam booth, as always, for keeping us streaming so that folks can follow along at home. Really important for accessibility for our government. And we appreciate you being here with us. Our next regular meeting is coming up on April 7th, Monday, April 7th. And that will be here in the council chambers at 7 p.m. And are there any other announcements from councilors before we adjourn? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? That carries 8-0. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.